Hello to my learners. Today we are going to read the poem Geography Lesson from class 8. What does the word geography remind you of? Well, the word geography reminds me of obviously social science geography book. It reminds me of mountains, rivers, hills, and the names of different places, rivers, etc. But what does the word geography lesson means? Is it a lesson on geography? And how that converted into a poem? Well, this poem is by Zulfikar Ghose. But who is Zulfikar Ghose? My learners, I found an interview of Mr. Ghosh on internet. I'll send a link in the description. Here we get to know about Zulfikar Ghosh that he was born in Sialkot before partition. It means he saw the partition of India, that is when India got divided into India and Pakistan. So, but when he was born in Sialkot, and at that time I think it was India. So Zulfikar Ghosh's earlier life was marked by frequent transitions. During the partition, he moved to Bombay. His complete family moved to Bombay. Then he went to England, where he attended the secondary school and college. After that, it is mentioned he graduated from Kiel, the new red brick university, where he became known as a poet and editor of a national anthology of student poems, University's Poetry. Well, there is a lot of more biographical information about Zulfikar Ghosh, and whenever I tell you about the poet, what I want to stress upon is how the poet is important to our poem. So the poem means geographical lesson. When we move ahead with the poem, I'll try to find the relationship between the poet's life and the poem. However, for the present time, you just read the poem. What does the poem mean? Can you imagine what your city would look like if you saw it from 10,000 feet above the ground? Neatly planned and perfect in proportion like a geometric design. It would strike you as something very different from what it actually is while you are in the thick of it. Here is a poet's description of just such a view of the city and some questions that come to his mind. So, basically, the question before we read the poem, the question that asks is, have you ever imagined how your city would look like from above the ground? My learners, if you would have seen certain videos, you will notice that they have been drone cameras, especially during this lockdown. You can see that how drone cameras are used for security purposes and to utilize them in the purpose of the lockdown. So you can see how the city looks planned from above the ground. Well, when this poet, Mr. Zulfikar Ghosh, would have written this poem, at that time he might not have seen such technology, but the only way to look at the city would be through a helicopter or an aeroplane. And clearly, this reminds us that therefore he uses a jet to give us a view of the city in that way. But as I told you, during this lockdown, you must have seen on the news and various videos, even the vloggers use it to show you the natural beauty. So it's just that view. But what is so special about that view? Let us see ahead. When the jet sprang into the sky, it was clear why the city had developed the way it had. So jet it just took off, and he saw the city from above the ground, and then he's finding out the reason why it has developed in this way, why the city has developed in this way. There are streets, there are locations, there are uh, roundabout, and there are houses at one place, there is river at one side. So he's trying to find out why the city has developed in this way. Seeing it scaled 6 inches to the mile, there seemed an inevitability. Inevitability means no end. There seemed an inevitability about what on ground had looked haphazard. Haphazard is misplaced, like randomly placed things, unplanned and without style, when the jet sprang into the sky. So he sees that everything was placed at different locations, different places. It seemed like it is completely unplanned. It feels like no one planned the place where these things have to be there. Everything's look haphazard. Means it looks like things have been just thrown out at several places and things are lying at different locations. So this is the first part of the poem, and this first part talks about when the jet took off and how the city looked like from above 6 inches. Now second part. When the jet reached 10,000 feet, it was clear why the country had cities where the rivers ran and why the valleys were populated. So when he went to the 1,000 feet, he saw that most of the cities had developed near the rivers because they need water. They need for drinking purposes. They need to run their factories. They need water to run their to carry on the activities of the farming. So it clearly gave him a reason why most of the valleys and the cities have been built near the rivers. The logic of geography, that land and water attracted man, was clearly delineated when the jet reached 10,000 feet. But what does he say in the next four lines? He says the logic of geography, that land and water attracted man, was clearly delineated. Delineated means change direction. It moved from that side. So, why did it happen? And how did he realize when he reached 10,000 feet? So, this is the second part. First part was 6 inches, second was 10,000 feet. Now we are going 6 miles high. When the jet rose 6 miles high, it was clear the earth was round and that it had more sea than land. So if you look at the earth from the sky quite above, you will see only water and land. If many of the students would have been through flight, or it is quite easy, it might not be a personal experience, but there are many videos on YouTube where you can uh, actually see, if you cannot experience it, but you can actually see how does it look from above. So you will see only the division between sea and land. Then what does he have to say about it? But it was difficult to understand that the men on the earth found causes to hate each other, to build walls across cities, and to kill. From that height, it was not clear why. So as he rose to 6 miles high, there was only land and water. So there was no any kind of discrimination. But when he reached that height, he realized that men on this earth, men here means both men and women, means all the human beings, they have found out reasons to hate each other. There are no reasons actually. These reasons do not exist, but they have created their own reasons. What are the reasons? It is religion, it is race, it is color, it is different regionalism. You belong to a different region, so they make fun of it. Different countries have borders across the countries. So he sees nature does not have any boundaries. He cannot see any boundary from above. He is not able to find out a reason why people are fighting with each other, why they are killing each other, right? So there is a very popular saying that when I crossed, I don't remember it exactly, but it says this way, that I when I moved out of my district, I belong to a state. When I moved out of state, I belong to a country. When I cross my country, I belong to the world. So जितना आप अपने रेडियस से बाहर जाएंगे, आप एक लार्जर बीइंग से बिलोंग करेंगे. एंड एट द एंड ऑफ द डे वी आर ऑल ह्यूमन बीइंग्स एंड दिस अर्थ इज आवर होम. So we need to protect this earth. My learners, there is a this poem is quite relevant right now. Why does it have its relevance? It has its relevance because at this moment of time we have seen several countries spend millions and billions of rupees for security purposes. Right now, at this moment, no rocket, no fighter plane can protect us from this disease. Countries don't know who their attackers are or who are their enemies, yet they have so many weapons. But right now, at this moment, we know our enemy is Corona, and still we do not have any weapons to fight with it. Right? Nature, the only positive thing that is happening right now is nature. Nature is healing. River water is getting cleaned, birds, animals are coming out, pollution levels are decreasing. So, this poem, last stanza, becomes very meaningful here, that we have to remove these reasons of enmity between us, why we are killing each other. We have to remove all these reasons of hate, and we only have to spread love in this world and make this place a beautiful place as it was earlier. I'll make some more reflections to this poem. Uh, I would also require you to go through this interview, and I'll give a link of it so that you get to know a bit more about Zulfikar Ghosh. Clearly, he went through the pain of partition of India and he came to Bombay that time. So he must have gone through this pain of uh, hate among people. So somewhere that reflection must have come into this poem too. So this was the explanation of the poem. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any suggestions, I am open to it and I'll try to incorporate in my next video. Thank you so much.